I recently read this book. It's called 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. It's a very popular book on Amazon. It has last time I checked, it had like 75,000 reviews on Amazon. It's a very popular book. Certainly not your average self-improvement book. If you've watched any of Jordan Peterson's interviews or podcasts, you will realize that he's an individual who doesn't speak direct and concise to the point. He likes to be informative and often beat around the bush, which has helped him a lot of times. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You've seen his interviews, it has helped him lots of times in his interviews and podcasts. Being articulate is, of course, good, but being informative can be a double edged sword. This book is not something you can speed read. I would suggest you to read each and every paragraph, but that's not possible with 90% of readers. It's not possible reading each and every paragraph. And this book is like 361 or something, 360 pages long. It's not a small book, it's a long book, certainly above average. And when I say Jordan Peterson is articulate, which is obvious, he is informative. He doesn't speak concise to the point like PBD, Patrick Bet-David, who's the opposite, who speaks like direct and concise to the point. Okay, so this is a bonus tip. It's a common idea among speed readers. How it goes is that, so let's see this paragraph. Okay, so I'm reading this paragraph, right? This is one whole paragraph. When I'm reading this, whenever I'm beginning a paragraph, I first get an overview of the paragraph. Like just when you read the first two lines, not even reading, just seeing the first two lines, you get an overview of the entire paragraph. So after you get the overview, you're the one the reader is supposed to judge it. Is this paragraph actually worth reading? Or is it just a filler which the author has just added there? If you have ever seen a TV show or maybe like a anime or something, you would know there are filler episodes. So just like that, there are fillers in books as well. So you open some random page. I've opened a random page. Let's say this is the paragraph. The one I've chosen is quite large. So you start the paragraph. You don't actually read the paragraph. What you do is you just go through the lines. Just see the paragraph and judge it with your inner monologue. Is this worth reading or is it just a filler? So that's that. That's a very important tip for reading non-fiction and self-improvement books. It's quite an important tip. Suggest you implement it if you want, but at the same time, don't use this tip if you're reading fiction book, because it's a different case when you're reading a fiction book, right? When you're reading a fiction book, you're reading it for the enjoyment of the book. That's not the same with reading self-improvement books. Certainly not. When you're reading self-improvement books, just imagine you're sitting on your couch or something and reading self-improvement books. Your main objective of reading the self-improvement book is to extract as much knowledge, as much useful knowledge as you can. So you're reading this book and you're trying to extract as much knowledge as you can from the book. If you're reading for enjoyment, okay, I get you. You're reading a biography, autobiography, or some fiction manga, or any of that fiction, right? Or non-fiction, sci-fi, or any of that. So, but when you're reading self-improvement books, most guys read it with the intention of extracting as much knowledge as you can. If you're not extracting as much knowledge as you can and implementing it in your life, what's the use of reading self-improvement books in the first place? That's why I feel this tip is very useful, can help you in your overall reading journey of non-fiction, self-help, and yeah, speed reading. Highly recommend you look into that. So I've given you a general idea of the book. Don't expect it to be direct and concise to the point. Expect lots of fillers. A lot of you listening to this right now will think by fillers I mean they're useless. No, it's not entirely like the fillers you see in TV shows. Of course, it's written by Jordan Peterson. What do you expect? So the fillers in this book will actually be useful. If you pick up any paragraph, there'll be lots of references, lots and lots of references, which if you want, can read it. By filler, I don't mean it is like useless information. That's not what I'm saying. Like you got the idea of the chapter and you can go in detail. I'd call that personal preference and whatever. But here's the thing, right? If you're new into reading self-help books, if you're new in this genre, I wouldn't recommend you read this book. Honest opinion. If you're new in this genre, this in my opinion is not the go-to book. The go-to books can be books such as uh, Atomic Habits. That's a really good book for beginners, in my opinion. And the last thing I would like to address is that this book, fascinating book by the way, if you're used to reading self-help books, this is your go-to. If you're used to reading self-improvement books and you've not read this, take this book. I would highly recommend to someone who's not new, who's like used to reading such kind of books. But if you're new, don't go for this book, in my opinion. As I said, it's not an easy read. At the same time, it's not super complicated. But why read this book when you have other self-help books which are much beginner friendly? Now, this book it's jam packed with knowledge and whatnot. So definitely do read it if you're used to such book. But don't read it if you're new. Other books prevailing in the genre, such as Atomic Habits, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I think that's more than enough for this book. Last words, 8.5 out of 10.